the vulnerable, all powerful, and the most gangster thing you could do is serve. This is All the Way Alive.
Every week, we come into this spot over here and we do one thing and one thing only, Miles Xavier. Do you know what that one thing is?
We hit mad drops.
We hit mad drops and then we give the people exactly what they want. And what the people want, Miles Xavier, is this carefully curated content that we bring every week. You are indeed on the All the Way Live podcast. It's your boy Zoe Gila. I'm with my brother Miles Xavier. And what we do over here, man, is give you guys that carefully curated content for your cranium by putting together a show with the sole purpose of being, even if for a moment, a relief in someone's day. Whether it's one person, 10 people, 10,000 people, it don't matter, man. We know people are going through it, and we cultivate positive energy through instrumental conversations and fly topics, and we bring it to the people every week.
That's right. That's what it's about. What up, world? You know what I'm saying? I'm happy to see y'all.
Oh man, we back again. We back again, man. We love engaging with the people, man. We love engaging with the people, and exactly how we contribute to that engagement is by breaking this show up into three different parts. And those three different parts, I almost stumbled there. Those three different parts are stumble upon, current news, and recommended and review, man. We're bringing you guys from things, topics, and ideas that we've engaged with throughout the week. This week, we're talking about NCAA basketball and sports players being able to make cash. Why do you laugh?
I don't know how many A's there was in there, but we're going to make sure. AAA, NCAA, AA, we're going to make sure. You know what I'm saying? After that, we're going to talk about AA batteries.
Something like that. Something like that. And then we go to current news. You know, there's a lot happening in South Africa. Our former president just got arrested. So we're going to bring that down, you know, reaching up to the very hottest topics that are there. We bring them down. These aren't just arbitrary conversations we're having. We really do think to ourselves, what is something that would be contributive to a positive conversation? And what do people want to be able to listen to? And our favorite part of the show is recommended and review for that exact reason.
Oh, yeah, because we get to interact with you. You know what I'm saying? We review what you recommend. We recommend what we think is cool. And this week we getting into, we ain't talk about this. I hope you're ready. I hope you listened to that new Snow. Yeah, check. And that new Vince.
Come on, man.
All right, man. Snow Allegra, Vince Staples. We out here with it. That's gonna be a great recommended review segment. Summer music is in full swing, and we are blessed to be have access to the sweet tones of Snow Allegra. You know, as chestnut and hazelnut tones, we always appreciate some touching tones. So get your candles ready for recommended review.
For sure. Remind us again, who is chestnut tones and who is hazelnut tones?
I'm glad you asked. Just to make sure everybody knows, you are chestnut tones.
Mm-hmm.
And what up, people? You know how I be. I'm hazelnut tones.
But why'd you have to say it like that, though? Why'd you have to add an intro into it? You know, you said you're chestnut tones and then went into hi, people, and you know me. Welcome. What's up with that? That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. You know.
You're absolutely right. Listen, hold on. Listen, y'all. We have a very special, you know what I'm saying, amigo of mine over there. That's Chestnut Tones is in the building.
That's so loud.
You know what I'm saying? Nah, grandiose with the welcomes over here. You know what I'm saying? We're making sure that you don't feel left out. You know what I'm saying? And I'm hazelnut, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But you know what's more important than that is what's in the building, man. You already know what's going on, man. Chicago is in the building. Joe Berger's in the building. On that side, we have the illustrious Gallery Momo. You know what I'm saying? You see the art switching up, you know what I'm saying? If you could cock your cranium to the side a little real quick to let the people see That's kind of fire right there. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? We're gonna keep having it for you. And speaking of art, man, there's only more art to come. We'll be showcasing some important things this episode, man. So stay tuned for that. This side, you already know what's going on, man. The building is in Chicago. This podcast is recorded on stolen land. This land here in the city was cared for by the Potawatomi people. The Council of the Three Fires, and the violence done to remove them from this land is inseparable from the state we find this city in, the state we find this country in, the state we find this world in. One time to everybody who's going through it. Summertime Chicago, man, it has been super real out here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of people shot, wounded over the holiday weekend for July 4th. So prayers up to all those families, man. Lifting love between Black and brown people the world over, lifting up love for everybody in the city, lifting up love for Indigenous people the world over, man. Healing for everybody's head top is what we wish in the building right now, man. And so with that intro over, let's get into the show.
Let's get into it. The summer is hot in Chicago, man. And I actually wanted to ask you about that because if for people that are unfamiliar with it, come July 4th, that is a particularly high day for shootings, almost nationwide in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, and there's like a lot of factors that contributed to that, right? Especially in the context of this year, everybody and their mama is outside, right? We've been pent up for so long, so everybody's out. But every summer, even before this, you know, these were times where, yeah, people are outside. Just the heat itself contributes, I think, to violence, to, you know, the magnification or the expedition of how quick it can take to go from 0 to 100. That gets mad expedited when it's hot outside, right? Especially if you don't have AC, right? And so people are irritable, you know what I mean? And so people are leaving their homes, especially if you live in apartments and stuff like that, to cool off. Sometimes it's cooler outside than it is in the crib, you know what I mean? And so people are jammed together in that space. If you've ever seen the movie Do the Right Thing, it's kind of all about how summer days kind of push people to clash, just with the weather and just with the environment itself. And so that plays itself out over inner cities across the United States, particularly in Chicago. But I know that Los Angeles also sees spikes in violence during the summer, New York. So yeah, man, it's tough, man. It's tough even as a kid growing up in these spaces to like look forward to summer. That's the time that school's out, kids are out of school, right? Adding to who's all out and about. And it's tough to have to look at that time as a time to have to be safe. You know what I'm saying? As we wish each other a happy Juneteenth, a happy July 4th, there's also that kind of be safe element too. So,
that's real.
But man, beautiful things are happening. There was a resource fair yesterday that I got to spend a little time and check out. You know, people are, when I say people, I'm community stakeholders, people that work at the Park District, the Urban League, people that work at schools doing summer programs, people that are doing summer programs outside of schools are working to get kids involved in something positive, to engage kids in that. And to give kids a voice to talk about what's going on and what they feel like they can make their community better, right? So there is work being done outside of just straight up policing, which, you know, clearly isn't super effective in terms of these types of violent problems. But we getting through it, even though we going through it, you know?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you touched on exactly what is being done about it, because that also gets lost in the numbers of violence and whatnot, is that there are actually people, boots on the ground, that are putting in that work, that are focused on ensuring that these kids have a place to express themselves. You know, we say it all the time that a lot of killers are people that missed a few hugs. You know, people that I don't want to oversimplify it, but there is an evident absence of attention and care that is prevalent in the young kids, who predominantly are the ones that are getting involved in these high crimes.
Yeah, and I don't think that's, I mean, it is a complex issue, but it's super important to speak to that care, right? And how much that matters in community, and how much that lifts up communities, right? These kids not only may have missed some hugs, but they've seen their schools be torn down and taken away, right? Labeled as under-resourced and underutilized. And so those pillars of community have been, crushed. Even if they're under-resourced and underutilized, whose fault is that? It sure ain't the kids' fault, right? They've seen housing stripped away. The largest closing of public housing happened in Chicago with the project buildings that were here, the Ida B. Wells homes, the Robert Taylor homes, seeing all of that stuff torn down. Repeatedly, generations of kids in Chicago have seen the spaces in their communities that have held people together, complicated as they may be, under-resourced by the city government as they may be. So when you see these aspects of your community kind of get dismissed, you stop believing that these are pathways, that your school is a pathway to success, that your school is going to lead you to a career, right? When you have to navigate all of these other much harsher realities of life just to get to school, right? And then you're expected to focus in school when you have to navigate all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, man. And care, it starts with care, right? It starts with trauma-informed care, understanding that these kids have been traumatized by the system, by their environment, that there is a structural violence that is on top of the physical gun violence that we see playing out. There's a violence that of institutions that have limited their options in school and housing and access to healthcare and access to mental health care that underpin all of the violence that we see going on. So it's hugely important, man, to acknowledge that it starts with caring about these spaces by people, especially who aren't in them.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a perfect segue into our stumble upon conversation of NCAA students not being able to get paid, because a lot of those students actually come from those exact environments. If you're speaking about which students are the ones that, what demographic of people are the ones that are most impacted by NCAA regulations and policies, and the inability for children to be able to, students to be able to profit off of their likelihood, their image and likelihood, that's something that has to be, you have to appreciate where most of these students are coming from. And recently, now they've overturned that. I'm not entirely sure what exactly the specifics are on that. Were you able to get any exact details on what the policy change is?
Oh man, so I love how you kind of segued us beautifully into that conversation, right? If people that aren't in these communities, if it starts for care with them, for people that are in these communities, it starts with taking advantage of these opportunities. And when barriers to those opportunities are lifted, that's always something to celebrate. So as we move on into our stumbled upon,
hey y'all, come look at this.
We are checking out the NCAA and how they have alleviated restrictions that now allow players to make money off of their likeness, off of their jersey, off of their social media following, which was something that the NCAA had been very what's the word I'm looking for? Adamant, intentful about restricting before.
Can we have an applause or gunshot for that? Because that is actually big. That's big.
Yeah.
That's big.
Sure.
And I'd like to, for sure. And I'd like to paint this picture for people that aren't, that have not been around the American college experience, right? Because there's many different types of fandoms for universities in different places, but there isn't anything quite like American fandom for universities, and that is just purely based off of, you can base that off of from a capital, how much the actual NCAA is worth. It's $1 billion organization, multiple billion. And for the school that we went to, the students, the college athletes are like stars. They extremely popular. Now we've learned that even the school bends the rules for different classes that they make up for them to take, just so that they can be able to pass through. And the school makes so much money out of it, selling T-shirts with the kids' names on it. There was even an NCAA game that happened, and none of these kids can make money from it. None, from high school all the way to the NCAA, none of them can make money. So this overturn, I think, is a pretty dope changing point.
Absolutely. So it's really interesting because a couple of weeks ago, earlier in June, right, the Supreme Court ruled that the NCAA had violated antitrust rules by not paying players, and that students should pay, or that students should be paid beyond scholarships that cover the basic cost of attendance, right? So the Supreme Court makes that ruling. The NCAA says, all right, we're going to start alleviating those restrictions, right? Which means that players can now get paid from their own likeness, their own image, their own name. But it doesn't get money. It doesn't get at the ticket sales, the broadcasting sales that the colleges make. So the other way to look at this is colleges getting ahead of, after the Supreme Court ruling, seeing that, okay, legislatively, the tide might be turning against us. Let's allow students to make money off of their own likeness, off of their own social media following, off of the endorsements that they can get, so that we alleviate some of this pressure before the demand becomes, we want some of those tickets too. We want some of those jersey sales and merchandise from the school, and we want some of the broadcasting from the ESPN deals that the school is getting to, right?
Whoa! I thank you for point. So what you're saying is it is a anticipation of saying, let's give them the pig feet of this whole thing so that they don't ask for the real pork chop.
It's right. It's giving them the opportunity to, sure, if you're a popular basketball player, volleyball player, softball player, right, for the NCAA, based on your popularity, we will no longer restrict you from making whatever bread that you could have made potentially off of that popularity. But we're still not giving you a piece of ticket sales, concessions, broadcasting, right? So hopefully the opportunity for the most popular, the best athletes to make their money satisfies this whole question of athlete pay before it becomes more narrowed in on those larger areas of dinero.
Yeah. And again, listen, you've seen some young talent like and this is, and I'm not great at college football, but you have seen, I believe there's a star football athlete who decided to go to a HSBCU.
Man, are you adding extra letters to the acronym?
Damn, I knew it, dude. I was like HSBCU, historically black HBCU.
Mm-hmm. Historically black colleges and universities.
All my people from Spelman, all my people from Howard, yo, apologies on that. But yeah, you've seen star athletes now make some recent choices to go to these black universities instead of running to the ones that usually do, these Big Ten schools, right? And so with that, and what I love about this show is that we're consistent with our appreciation for protest, because now this also gives students the abilities to say, listen, if this school wants me to come play at it because I can bring a commercial value to it, they need to be able to allow us to participate within the revenue streams, in the ticket sales, in the jersey sales, in the games, and all of that. Now, this is an accomplishment to get this far, but it's only until we're in those boardrooms that do we really start making that change, man. So all the people that have that power to them, I encourage you to utilize your leverage.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's just exciting, man. It always blew my mind, right, that you could be a college athlete and back in the day, I think they stopped doing this a couple years ago, but like you could go and pick up NCAA video game and play as yourself in the video game, and other people could go and get this game and play as you. It's your face, it's your body, it's even your tattoos, right? And you're not getting paid $1 for this, right?
Yeah.
And that just seems, and it's this company like EA Games, and it's not even like the university is like, the university that you go to. This is an entire other entity making mad money off of your face, your jump shot, right? So it's like, this has been long overdue, and I'm glad to see this moving in the proper direction. but keep pushing, right? Keep pushing for
Yeah.
all that bread so that people get what they deserve, right?
And we'd be remiss to not point out what the consequence for taking cash has been. We talking about what's Mike? It's not Mike Vick. It's
I'm not sure. I don't have an example, but there are
the
lots of college students.
Heisman Trophy winner Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush, right? This is like the Reggie Bush where he was said to have taken on some cash and then had his Heisman Trophy and his records completely expunged from the USC. So,
bless you. One more again. Bless you again.
Good things coming through. The punishment was harsh. All to say, the punishment was harsh. Even all the way in high school, LeBron James, he got chastised for supposedly taking cash in. But the question is, it's why is it that the schools can make these exuberant amounts of capital and not allow any of the students to play into it? So I do think this is a win, bro.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So shout out to the NCAA, its athletes, and yeah, man. I think at a time, referencing our story from last week, Sha'Carri Richardson, they had the opportunity to allow her to run in the U.S. relay, and have decided not to, even though it was outside of her 1 month ban for marijuana use. So as we see these large institutions that have these athletes and their careers and their opportunities in their hands, I think it's refreshing to see the NCAA moving in the right way, even if it has to have been nudged by this Supreme Court decision and people fighting for this for 50 years for students to get paid. So
yeah,
progress is progress, and I'll take it.
It is indeed. Mr. Miles Xavier, seems like we might be done with Stumble Upon, and it's time for us to introduce something to the show that we have been so excited to do. We promised that we'd be changing the show and being able to create more time and space for giving you guys not just more of who Miles and Zware are behind the scenes, but things that we appreciate. And I think that we might just be on the cusp of something dope with this new segment of ours.
That's right. That's right. So this Stumbled Upon segment right here has been brought to you by the Mandulo Foundation, man. That's something you might have heard us mention a couple times on the show. I'm going to turn it over to my brother, you know what I'm saying, to let you know a little bit more about Mandulo.
For sure. And while we break down this Mandulo, while we break down the sponsorship, this particular art piece, like Miles said, has been sponsored by Mandulo Foundation. At the Mandulo Foundation, we are all about feeding kids. We are all about being able to empower communities. And this year, we've hit our goal of feeding 1 million kids. Can we get some airdrops, bombs, whatever? Thank you. That's right. We done did that, but we need y'all to help us get to 10 million, man. It's winter time in South Africa. People are cold. People are jobless. It's quite rough out here. Not even in South Africa, in Chicago, where the Mandulo Foundation operates as well. So we put the link down at the bottom. Please do check that out and sponsor a child or whatever the case may be. Engage and help. And also enjoy this dope art from the artist of residency that will be showing his work. Part of this whole segment is for us to showcase some art pieces. So we got our boy Cooler Than Black Emojis on Instagram to provide us with this piece.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Over here at the All the Way Live podcast, we are all about lifting up creators. We're all about lifting up artists. So if you have something that you do really well, whether that's art, whether that's a small business, let us know. We would love to spotlight and showcase the amazing work that the people, the community that supports this show are doing. Hit us up at allthewaylivemedia@gmail.com, right? We can add that to the description as well. And yeah, man, so we'll continue to be showcasing art, showcasing a little bit more of the stuff that we rock with. It's difficult with licensing and stuff, which makes it difficult to share music, but also is a good thing because it has us double back on the homies to share what we can. So yeah, man, more of that coming soon. Definitely hit us up to be a part of that. If you got something you want to share with the world, you know what I'm saying? Our 1, 10, 100 million people, however many it might be going forward, we got some reach. You don't know. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
we do. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we
So,
do. And if you listen to this on our Spotify, sorry, I cut there. If you're listening to this on our Spotify or SoundCloud or iTunes or wherever you're listening to, man, we do appreciate you, but you are missing out on some of this quality image. We're going to be showing all sorts of different art pieces going forward. So be sure to also double back onto the YouTube when you get there. Hit all of them buttons that let us know that y'all people rock with this content. If there's something in particular that you're into, that you dig, let us know. You see, we respond in the comments in time, just because we appreciate y'all like that.
yeah, sir. Gratitude.
Gratitude it is. Also, sponsors want to be able to show anything over here, hit us up and we'll put yo ad in this particular section, and you too can sponsor some awesome Black talent and some awesome art, man.
Yeah, I already said that. Current news.
Hey, Mr. Miles Xavier, things are particularly interesting in South Africa at the moment. Our former president Jacob Zuma has handed himself in to start the bid of what is a 15-month sentence on the basis of his obstruction of justice to show himself at the state commission. So there's a lot. Go ahead.
Just trying to clarify a little bit of what you just said. Obstruction of justice, failure to show up. So he was supposed to be somewhere, had a court date. Bro missed his court date.
You're very sharp, Mr. Miles Xavier, because that's exactly what happened. So in South Africa, we do have, if you recall the peace and reconciliation trials, right? Where following 1993, going into 1994 and 1995, after the release of Nelson Mandela, Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, all of the leaders at the time decided that it would be best to trial the system instead of trialing the individuals who participated in the apartheid system. And by doing so, accepting what they believe to be that if somebody is part of the only way that we can move past this history is if we can all speak honestly about what happened, so that there can be peace and reconciliation moving forward. And the only reason I highlight that in this particular instance is because what is called the Zondo Commission has been a commission that has been set up almost like a public trial. You know, it's a public inquiry on the mass amounts of theft and fraud that happened under Jacob Zuma's presidency, right? So there's a lot of information into it, but I do say that these platforms of where South African political figures come down and speak to the state in a public forum, backed by the Constitution and backed by the legal system. These things are quite important and serious in this community. So he failed to show up to that on multiple occasions over a long period of time. It's frustrating. I'll be honest. It's very frustrating to see the disregard for the law like that. But I am quite pleased with the fact that the law ended up winning at the end of the day.
And he continued to fail to show up while he was still in office.
So the commission only started once he was out of office, right? So this commission was set up about 2 years back. His presidency ended in around 2018, where he was ousted from the position to then be succeeded by the incumbent. So it was after that. But you need to understand the financial and economical crisis that South Africa is in right now stems from the decisions that these men had made.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
appreciate you opening this conversation with acknowledging the Truth and Reconciliation Act, right? Because it shows, if even in a flawed way, a willingness to acknowledge and account and record the wrongdoing of state officials and government, right?
Mm.
The parallel I think we drew, even as Trump was first getting into office, right, was kind of a parallel between at least you and I, Trump and Zuma, right, and just kind of a brashness, a disregard for the rules, and it's really interesting to see now him kind of flaunt these attempts to tie up loose ends after his tenure, as we see also similarly but different in a frustrating way in the US. Uh, Half of Congress, the Republican half, being very dismissive of investigations into the storming of the Capitol,
Mm-hmm.
uh, being very reluctant to pursue any legal action against Trump, right, or allow those types of investigations to go forward uninhibited, right, and so it's just really interesting to see that these two figures continue to escape that accountability, even after having left office, and it just reiterates and emphasizes to me, and the frustrating part is that accountability is important, right? That what happened, what these gentlemen doesn't even sound right, but what these gentlemen did in office, the way sources were misallocated, the way that people were misinformed on a mass scale, should be recorded so that it doesn't happen again, so that we can recognize this type of behavior. I think both of these men, in their brashness, in their disregard for the rules, kind of took government and people by surprise. I didn't
Yeah.
know you could do that, right? Like I thought we wasn't gonna go that far. And these gentlemen both, I think, just kind of push the envelope in that regard. And it's important for us to hold them accountable, to acknowledge what they did that was wrong, so that the next time we have somebody who is, quite frankly, a bully in office anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
that we are prepared to handle that in a way that has been prepared for by historical precedent.
100%. And I'm so glad you drew those parallels, because the the reaction you're seeing now from Zuma being taken to jail is quite similar to is quite let me say has comparisons to the storming of the Capitol in a very in a manner that mainly highlights how supporters, the fringe supporters, extreme supporters of this person, reacted in a violent manner following a decision that was unbecoming towards their agenda. In this particular case in South Africa, Jacob Zuma being handing himself into jail after what was he was supposed to go last week. The last week Sunday, they postponed it for a couple of days, playing the constitutional game. There was a lot of hype around his hometown area, where people were ready to fight, and there were military epithets and very violent narratives that were being spread from the family and from the supporters alike. So that's where it becomes quite dangerous, right? Where the freedom of being able to just support somebody then takes on. We're all open to be able to support who we want to support, but when your rhetoric is that which incites violence, destruction, corruption, things like that, then there is a fundamental flaw in your capabilities as a leader. And that's what I think my country is seeing right now.
Mm. Mm.
It's
So
sad.
moving
It's
forward,
very sad.
yeah. But
Mm.
so this may be a glimmer of hope, as much as we don't want to associate hope with incarceration, right? Whenever we can avoid it. But this person having been detained, and will now presumably, what will be the next steps, right? Will he face trial for his failure to attend these uh, hearings, or what, or is he being charged with anything, or will he be forced to just do the business that was supposed to be conducted at those hearings? What's next?
What's next is we expect that he'll be going in for a quarter of that time. So within 3 months, he'll be open for bail. Um, following that, we expect him probably to. This man is facing a litany of charges. You know, there's no end to the the court cases that are lined up for this man. Very much like Trump, actually. I heard somebody say of both of these people that they will spend the rest of their lives fighting in a courtroom, fighting cases. And I think that's what's. This is just the beginning of it. And similarly, like you had pointed out, the Trump administration is facing the same thing. Is what is the point I was getting to.
Yeah, it's well, them being tied up in court for the rest of their lives isn't necessarily justice, but I just hope that our political memories aren't as short as our memories for other aspects of media and current events seem to be. Right, I already feel us kind of shifting away from this galvanization around Black Lives Matter, around equal justice, around safety for Black people, and defunding the police. Right, I'm already hearing refund the police as like a hashtag and a slogan. So we tend to forget very quickly when we're not experiencing the white hot emotion and immersion that the media provides whenever something like George Floyd happens. I just hope that we remember and make changes, and yeah, that we continue to have the energy to fight, even as we're tied up in bureaucracy and having it becomes a court case. It stops being sexy, right? Let's continue to push for justice, even when it is it's a briefcase and not bombs and rubber bullets.
Yeah, here's a question for both of us, right? Which is actually quite relevant. Is that we both are in community development. We both work with the communities and the community, the leading, let's say, community leaders, right? Would you ever take a political position?
Hell no.
Yeah, me too. Damn. Sorry, ma. Sorry, mom. It's not happening. I'm disqualified. I got too many tattoos and habits, man.
True that. And also, I don't know. I certainly we need people that have strong convictions rooted in community to represent community. But I already, in the opportunities that I have, feel restricted in what I can say, and how I can move, what I can write and publish, because a lot of my opportunities are rooted in my connection with the university, with the Greater Chicago Food Depository, institutions that have reputations to protect.
You can drop the mixtape, bro.
I did drop the mixtape. I ain't worried about the mixtape. I'm more worried about being explicitly abolitionist in spaces where I'm representing the University of Chicago, right? The University of Chicago employs the largest private police force in the country, right, to patrol its campus. So the issues of policing there are very tied, and there's something I think about in my work all the time, right? But as a politician, having to try and garner favor from all of these different aspects of community, some of which have opposing interests, and have to try and placate people, right? I just don't feel like that's the most honest way to operate.
Yeah.
If I can ramble for another 2 minutes, I would just say that my aspirations will bring me to close interactions with politics. I think it's important to be able to unite community voice in a way that translates to changes in public policy. And I want to be a part of that process, but firmly on the side of community, holding politicians accountable. Sorry, it's a tough job. If you want power, That's what it is. It's a service position, right? But I'm excited about being on the other side of that line and helping as somebody who doesn't have that the burden of that placation of those promises are on politicians, and I don't want to have to make any false promises. I would much rather, even if it's easier, sometimes it's really not, but on the side making demands and helping people who have needs turn those needs into demands that are coherent in the landscape of legalese and litigation.
It's putting context to the story of the people that need to be heard,
right,
or deserve to be heard. No, but that's real. I mean, in our generation, if you look at what politics has been represented as, what it currently it does represent in terms of deceits, in terms of misinformation and misdirection, in our most recent cases, corruption on a widespread level, divisiveness. There's a lot of negativeness that comes with politics, and so that makes it quite difficult to have an aspiration towards it. What I know about the people that have political aspirations in this country is that many of them do so for monetary reasons, and that's never a great incentive to have for the service towards the people. So it's not something that I particularly do, but I am excited for the opportunity to be able to fund and back the people that I believe for being in that position. And if you are one of those people, man, hit us up. I'm down to talk.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, we can go a lot of different directions with this conversation. Many of them very radical, right? But yeah, I don't think I would want to be a politician until the work of politicians reflected what I feel that work should be, reflected service. And right now it doesn't feel that way, right?
Yeah.
I honestly don't think of service when I think of, the politicians that are household names in this country, right?
Yeah.
And so if that position started to reflect that, or we change the system in such a way, I think there's huge opportunity for things to look very different very soon, right? Whether it's a world without police in the way that we imagine them now, a world where that funding is largely diverted to mental health care services. Imagine what that world looks like, right? When people who have been unable to participate now have a voice to participate and have effective means of holding politicians accountable. What a politician's job becomes then might be something I would be interested in, but I don't know if I see that happening in our lifetime. I think I'm going to be too busy trying to shape that world. And I don't think the position of politician will be ready for me, but maybe my kids can be a politician. Maybe that can mean something great.
It can be is all I'm saying. What the obligation should be is that they are custodians of the people's resources in order to get them out in the most efficient manner. The person we elect should not be somebody. It's like the example an example that I like that I once heard is that a government should be a pipeline of, like, those water pipes. If you ever had those old Windows, the old Windows wallpaper, and there's just pipes that are just God,
Yeah.
you remember that?
Yeah, took me back there.
Exactly, right. So politics is the government should be those pipes that move from where you get cash from taxes and whatnot, and they just move straight into where it's supposed to reach the people. And who we elect are people that overlook that system and ensure that everything around it is operating the way it's supposed to, not necessarily interfering with it, but more so maybe ensuring that if one of those pipes is not moving in the way that it's supposed to, then that gets fixed. And what the masses requirement for where that should be allocated is what is being observed. Depending on what we think it should go to, that's where the elections come in. But the tampering of the system, it should almost be autonomous. And now we start talking about just non-governance. It's this an automatic non-government, which is some, we were talking about extreme abolition, you know.
There you go. And yeah, it's incredible to think of government in that way. It's just like, right, a pipeline rather than as a hierarchy of power. And the tough part about that, though, is that how does somebody who believes in government in that way operate in a system where they're the exception to the rule, right? So if you're Bernie Sanders, right, and you don't want to play these political games, it's very hard for you to even navigate within your own party to garner the support it would take to get you in office. Because if you're going to go into government, right, and make sure that all these pipes are bringing the tax money from A to B, well, then you're going to end up with your hand in a lot of people's pockets, right? You're going to end up plugging a lot of holes between A and B that were feeding a lot of people, rightfully or wrongfully, right? And a lot of those people are going to go, yeah, I see what you're doing, but it's like trying to play basketball where nobody else has agreed not to travel, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How are you that good? You know? And I don't know if we have anybody that has been that good, and I don't know if I'm that good, but we'll see.
We'll see. And my solution, my 2 cents that I can contribute to this to this to this protest that we got going on against our government here is that we need to separate the tax revenue that is going to the government and go for a system where there's an intermediary, preferably backed by blockchain, that holds that capital that then is able to be decided and sent towards all the government payment, uh, the payment requirements that the government has, right? Because a lot of social security does come from taxes, which means that you cannot necessarily take cash away from the government. But in this particular instance, it's quite irresponsible because they keep on stealing it. So we have cash from our payee. That's PAYE. If you're getting a salary, automatically the government's taking tax from you. Now, I know they tapping in my phone on this one, and it's going to be very unpopular, but this is the solution. I promise y'all, it's the solution, and we're working on it. But the automatic taxes that get taken out of the payee, there has to be there has to be an intermediary that sits between, once it's automatically taken out of people's cash and then goes to the government, and then in that intermediary box, there lies the secret. And now we're talking decentralized salary. Another controversial topic. But that's the future. That's the future that I see. That's the future that I'm working towards.
Yeah. And I think, like many of these conversations about politics, about capitalism, I think it's how can we inform enough people how far from like that it currently works, right? Because most people just kind of don't really know. Some people might assume that, yeah, my tax money goes directly to where it's supposed to go, right? But how do we educate people about how to make civic change in their daily lives, right? How do we educate people about who the comptroller is, right? Who the governor general is, right? Who the school superintendent is, and how and what it means to vote for those people, and how to pay attention to those people in a way that, you know, can be a part of people's day to day, right? How do we shrink all of this information and filter it through all of the BS that we have to deal with as media that gets presented to us about the Kardashians and about all of that stuff? How do we get that information on not only voting locally, right, your local elections, but how do we get people information on, you would think it would be taught in school, but it's really not. I don't remember being taught about what a school superintendent does in school. There's probably a reason for that, right? There's probably a reason for that. But getting people, the more you can educate people about who controls the things that affect their daily lives and how those systems work, the better off everybody is, and the better off the system becomes, because you get more democratic, right?
Yeah. And to go off of that point of getting people information, right? There is a capital incentive for confusion in terms, confusion in systems, confusion in information. It should be simple enough where we are able to decide based on what we care about, what it is we want our cash to be able to go through. If you, Miles Xavier, is saying I'm a taxpayer that pays X amount of capital, and there is an ability for me to be able to push that to go into local schooling, maybe it's going into policing, maybe it's going into community development, maybe it's going into road building, whatever the case is, there is a way to be able to consider all of those things. Now, for the things that become less popular, we can then increase the percentage, which automatically has to be pulled to that, so that those things don't necessarily don't get um, forgotten about, right? So I like what you say about educating people in order to understand what the process can be for you to vote in a manner that can impact your day-to-day life. But it's also important to understand that the information that was the third one.
Bless you.
That was the third one. We said it was coming, and it did. Um, the the information elements of it and simplifying it to people, it is digestible, it is understandable. The reason why it sounds complicated is because it is supposed to feel complicated, so that you can leave that information to experts and people that know better, when in fact the system is actually supposed to be very simple. You make money, they take it, and it's supposed to go into things that make everybody's life better. That's that simple. Unless you are on the other end of the spectrum, you make money, you don't want them to take a lot of it, but where they do take it, you want it to go into very specific things. Whatever that is, there is room to be able to consider that, and it's digestible information. So power to the people and information to them too.
Big facts, and I just want to see us move in that direction, right? Making it more accessible for people to understand and act on act on that understanding of the system that determines how their environment works, right? I don't think it's a coincidence that they were willing to give us a day off for Juneteenth before they were willing to give us a day off to vote, right? I don't think it's a coincidence that after Stacey Abrams galvanizes the most Black people to vote in Georgia and other areas of the South than ever, we're seeing the biggest push for voting restriction there, right? Like it's disheartening for me to see us push back against that engagement of the people in the political process, and we have to push back against that. So continue to educate yourself, arm yourself with knowledge. You know what I'm saying? No matter, continue to vote against and write to your councilman, attend city council meetings to make sure that they're not putting this type of voting restrictions in place in your area. But make sure that you, whatever the restrictions are, whatever it is, make sure you get out and vote. Make sure you educate yourself in your local elections and support your local stakeholders, bro. Support your local neighborhood block club. Support your local park district. You know what I mean? Support. Go to community meetings, all that type of stuff, man. Get involved, bro. A lot of these spaces just need somebody to come in and take notes, man. Seriously, just like record the minutes of a meeting of like, a group that's dedicated to education in your community, like a parent action council of your school. Even if you're not a parent, get involved. Get involved.
I think we got some music that we might have to listen to, and if you follow and if you want to get us on Patreon, we're gonna play this music out loud. But Brother Miles, if you don't mind, kindly playing us into our favorite segment of the show.
Oh man,
tapping in. Are we live?
Yes, sir.
Vince Staples. You know what I mean?
Sir. Yes, sir. Do we want to start the Snow Allegro or the Vince Staples?
I mean, we here. We here. Let's get into this. You'll notice the change in lighting. I might even get my little robe on for the Snow Allegro. You know what I'm saying? Big cigar energy, big red wine energy for that. But getting ahead of myself. Vince Staples. What does it mean when it's not the first album that's self-titled? You can dig
Is this Are you saying he's got 2 self-titled albums?
No. I'm saying that this is a self-titled album, but it's not his first album, right? Typically, the self-titled album is the first joint. So
I did not
when I
know.
saw, yeah, typically that's how it goes, right?
Okay.
And I don't know, when I saw that this album was self-titled, it said something to me. Did that say anything to you?
No, I didn't, but I'm very interested in what you got from that.
I think it just put a slight expectation that this was, I mean, and if maybe I'm just pointing out the obvious, but if he's willing to call this project Vince Staples, I feel like it might be one that represents him in a way that maybe his other projects don't, right? And as I started to listen to it, I definitely heard a lot more maturity, a lot of honesty. It was a very transparent album, right? And so it felt fitting in that way. I do feel like this is the most intimate look we've got at who Vince is, even though he is somebody who's good at putting his personality into his art.
Yeah, for sure.
What you think?
It was a different take, especially if you listen to the album before, which was the Fish Theory, I believe. Which
Big Fish Theory.
Big Fish Theory.
Was Big Fish Theory, or was it FN? Was the last one?
Whichever one of the two, I will say this is the most palatable and had the most replay value and songs that I enjoyed. Now, if we're going to the first album, Summer 09 is the name of the first album.
Mm-hmm.
That is an incredible album. I remember when Summer 09, something to that effect. That album is incredible. Going to this particular one, this one definitely had the most replay value. I didn't take anything particularly from him giving it a self-titled album, but I was interested to see what he pulls from, given how experimental the crew, that area in Cali is right now, especially rappers, with Boogie doing what he's doing, Tyler just dropping what he had dropped. You really are seeing an attempt at music coming from the West Coast that's very different from the pop sound that's coming out of Atlanta right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Summer 06.
Summer 06.
Great.
Yeah.
Great project by Vince.
Check that out if you haven't. That's a great album.
Yeah. Recommended in review, baby. But yeah, man, I think going into this, I mean, Vince has always struck me as the rapper who cares the least about rapping. You know what I mean? Or being a rapper, right? Like, I'm not saying that Vince doesn't have a healthy respect for hip hop. And I think that plays out in the production. I think that plays out in the care that he puts projects together with. I think even limiting this album to 9 tracks shows kind of a love for order, a little bit more compact, right? They weren't necessarily going for that streaming platform, big numbers that way. But he doesn't strike me as somebody who cares too much about being a rapper. And so when I try and think about where Vince Staples was in the game, I don't think he did a defining project. He didn't need this, right? You know how sometimes we are looking at rappers' career and say, okay, they need to put out something now. They need something that's gonna keep them going. I think before this last Migos album, it was about time. They delivered. I think we're creeping up on it being time for Cardi again, right? You know what I mean? So I think he didn't have that pressure and still delivered something amazing, maybe because he didn't have that pressure, right?
Yeah.
This is a vibe. To go back to the hot buzzword of 2019, this was super cohesive, right? I could put this on a loop or shuffle it and really dig it. I love that he didn't try and go for anything super radio. He didn't try to go for anything club. It was just good music, man. It seems like he was just focused on making the music that meant a lot to him.
100%, man. And I do thoroughly enjoy the R&B features that lace that the album, and I see a heavy boogie influence that is seeping through Cali, and you know what I think about Boogie. I said he's next up, but that sample play is definitely that sample play over that vulnerable beats is very reminiscent of Everything's for Sale. But off of this, there were a few that I love. Law of Averages, which you played, was quite great. I think The Shining was also good. Was a highlight for me. Take Me Home was a highlight for me as well.
Yeah. Lil Fade, definitely a highlight for me. Sundown Town, that Law of Averages, and even I just thought this was a solid project.
Yeah.
I've already given it like 3 or 4 spins all the way through, so
Mhm.
short, easy to get through. Definitely rides. And speaking of that connection to that creative group, right? Even including Tyler, I believe Tyler also had an interlude with his mom speaking, right? And his
Yeah.
in Call Me If You Get Lost. And so this one also, The Apple in the Tree, is Vince's mom. Just giving you a little dose of how Vince got how he is, and I thought that was really nice. That was really cool. So shout out rappers bigging up their moms. Shout out Vince Staples. I will give this 4 out of 5, man. This is 4 out of 5 for me. I like it. I rocks with it. Heavy.
I'm not gonna be mad at that. I will say that the first time I listened to it, it really didn't stick with me. The first time I gave it a spin, I was unsure of what I was getting into. I heard a few things that were cool. I did mention to you that I was playing it while driving, so it wasn't the perfect time for it. I revisited again on some earphones. It was dope. Played it again while I was driving again. And then it really started to grow a lot on me. I don't know if I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 per se, but I'll stick at a 3.5 out of 5 mics. Maybe that's bound to change, and if it does, I'll let people know. And what I'll ask is that for that Snow Allegra album, we give it one more week, because I feel like I have not yet been in the best place to enjoy that album.
Well, if you're relegating me to another week of listening to my girl Snow, then I guess I can live with that. I can live with that.
Chopping wood is not the right time to listen to Snow.
No. Yeah. It's also it's interesting. It's interesting. Summer and wintertime albums are also flipped for us. You being in the Southern Hemisphere, so that's always it's always an interesting dynamic depending on where the artist is from. Also, you know what I mean? Shout out to The Source. The Source, if for those who don't know, is the original publication that is 5 mics. How do you feel about that? Do we want to rock with that? I was thinking about that over the course of the week, and just like The Source doesn't do that much digital stuff, so I don't feel like it's too much of a thing to steal 5 mics as our rating system. But I propose 5 slaps and 5 vinyls as alternative rating systems if we want to do something original. What say you?
I'm happy with 5 mics. It's all the way live, baby. It's in the name.
You heard it here first.
Quick question for you. Did you get a chance to listen to the IDK album?
I did listen to that album.
What are your feelings on IDK?
IDK is a really polished version of and I liked the project more than this statement is gonna make it seem like. But IDK is at the pinnacle of the polished generic rapper. And when I say generic, I don't necessarily mean that there's not a lot of creativity, because there certainly is. But vocally, rap scheme, and delivery, there's a lot more dependence on the beat and production to make the music interesting, right? So when I think of IDK, I also think of HD Ben Dope. I think of Wale Waldo. A lot of these artists who have a kind of a basic flow and cadence, who do have something to say, but that really rely on their production and their ability to rap over different sounding beats to elevate them to the status of being relevant ish. And it's a high effort above average, wherein there's so much in hip hop that is low effort above average or low effort just average. You know what I mean? Like there's I feel like
Where
they
would
have
you put
to
Cousin
work.
Stiz? Not to cut you, but where would you put Cousin
No,
Stiz on that
he,
list?
he belongs right in this conversation. I would say Cousin
Okay.
Stiz now is a little bit lower, but he too has been kind of at the top of that. I would say Jay Prince dabbles in that category. I would say there's a few rappers that are kind of in that lane. So yeah, I think IDK I think he's making the best version of that music that he can. I went through the album expecting it to be kind of good. He's had a lot of time to kind of incubate his sound and his design. But really only walking away with 2 or 3 tracks that I need to hear again. He tends to be more successful when he makes girl records and tracks that like I want to keep. But introspectively, he made a record called Hey Auntie, which everybody should go listen to. That song is fire. There's a video to it as well. Hey Auntie, IDK. That song is a standout on the album for me. Yeah, man. Alu J falls into that category.
Yeah.
But he's making that work for him. What did you think?
I think you nailed it on the head, right? I think you broke it down quite perfectly. When I think of the category that I place IDK in, it would have to be on some list that Russ is in as well, because there's the package is there for mass popularity. But I think the inability for the subject matter at times to go beyond oneself makes it quite limiting, depending on the type of persona that you have in hip hop, you know. And I think that's Russ is in a nutshell as well. Is that he's limited in his content pool, and a lot of the times, you know, every rapper has what they rely back on, and that usually can be the ego speaking, which at times is a little bit can get a little bit repetitive and can get a little bit draining to listen to, which is why when you listen to something like Vince Staples or Boogie or Isaiah Rashad, you're looking at vulnerability as opposed to just straight brash ego, you know. So that's I'd have to do that. I do enjoy IDK singles more, but I would say that I do think he's got a great aesthetic as a rapper. I think that his choice of he's very aware of the art, his artistic taste. He's good at finding things that fit him and being able to remain IDK in that setting, which I think is a great attribute to have. I'm interested to see where he goes, but for the most part, I'd give this a 3 out of 5 mics.
Yeah, I would give it
maybe 2.5.
I think
maybe 2.5 out of 5.
See, the thing is, I can see somebody who's a fan of him giving this a 4 out of 5, or even like a 4.5 out of 5. As somebody who's not a fan of his, it's right around 2.5 or 3, just because I really wasn't able to take that much from it. I took more from the 42 Dugg album, and 42 Dugg is trying for a lot less in his art, right?
Yeah.
I respect IDK. I respect even the vulnerability in his music. I respect the effort. But as cliche as it sounds, it's just not for me. But I see him as somebody who isn't going anywhere, right? If you look at, you know, in the way that Joyner Lucas has been able to carve out his own lane, I think IDK is gonna be in a similar position. And you know, who knows, man? The hip hop has expanded to allow for longevity that we never really expected, right?
Yeah.
People who are truly good at rapping, and IDK does have that lyrical foundation. He can rap into his 30s and 40s, and who knows what we'll get from him then, right? Royce the 5'9" continues to put out better and better music as he gets older, right? So keep it pushing.
Yeah. Hey man, looks like we got this show in the bag. And the crazy thing about doing this whole show, Mazik Xavier, is that as we're doing it, we are quite cognizant, and we know.
Yeah, it's never far from our minds. You know what I'm saying? We keep it at the forefront of our intention to deliver you quality curated content for your cranium. That's also carefully curated, but also y'all got a lot of podcasts to choose from, man. It's a lot of them. You know what I'm saying? You probably had to scroll past a couple, probably saw some on your main YouTube page, Spotify page, your SoundCloud page, your Apple Music page. You probably saw another podcast, had to scroll past it to get to this one. And for that, we are forever devoted to you, man. We are indebted. The gratitude is so real. And so just for that, we'll be back next week, man. You know what? Just for y'all, man. Just because you are currently here experiencing the lovely wavering warbles of hazelnut tones and chestnut tones as we celebrate life, as we celebrate love, as we celebrate celebrating, as we celebrate good it feels to be Black. Don't it feel good, Sway?
It's my favorite thing, Miles.
And we hope that it feels good to be you. So with that, peace, love, water, eat something delicious, hug somebody you love. Like that, we gone.